Hello and welcome to Fur, Fins, and Feathers. Believe it or not, but this is our 48th show, and we're very, very honored to have two very special guests today. We have Jim and Jo-Ellen Vought of Rainham.
That's right.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank
Glad
you.
to be
And
here.
we have known each other for many years, off and on through the sport of dogs, and it's truly an honor to have you. Before we start, I did want to acknowledge the fact that last Saturday night, Butterball, who was our beloved cat, our Maine Coon mix, passed away from kidney failure, and so it's been a blow to us in our family. But we've heard from countless people in the community who really took an interest in Butterball, and we have her shirt here, and she was just really a treasure, and I have countless stories that I could share, but we're going to get into the heart of our stories, both of our guests today. Jim, tell us about your book.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brian, for having us on the show.
We're very honored to have you.
Okay. So I have two books, but my most recent book is Puppy Tales 2: Emotions, and it's come out about a couple of years ago, but it's still we're selling it on Amazon, and the book really talks about the main emotions that children and people will feel, like anger, sadness, happiness, fear, frustration, things like that. And so what we do is that in the book, Jo-Ellen and I have had a number of different dogs and several at the same time. And so one of the things I thought would be fun is to write some stories from the point of view of the dogs, and have the dogs some of the dogs get into social problems, interpersonal problems, and then also have the other dogs help them out in terms of coaching them how to handle those situations. And so I have three dogs here: Bridget, Philip the dachshund, Casey, which you see down here, and our newest member of the family would be Price, and he's an Australian Shepherd. Casey and Price are Australian Shepherds. But the book is really helpful in terms of giving out coping skills for dealing with emotions, and I think in this time, Brian, where with the pandemic and children, a lot of them at home, and a lot of fear going on, and a lot of different emotions with children, I think this is a great time to buy the book, because it would really help parents to talk to their children about what they're thinking and feeling, and help them put language around it, and really help them give voice to their feelings, and then help them kind of show them how to coach them through those difficult moments in their life. So
This is a very difficult time and a very stressful time for families and for people of all ages.
That's very true. I think I come from a little bit of a biased point of view, because I do wraparound, which is a family therapy type of approach and a case management type of approach with children and their families. So I come a little bit more from that angle, but you're absolutely right in terms of how it's affecting all people, adults and children, and all the people of our society. So
one of the questions that I was confronted over the weekend was, are you going to buy another, or are you going to not buy, but are you going to obtain another pet?
yeah,
I had dogs for many, many years, and I'm getting a little too old to have a dog, but I would like to have another cat, and especially when I saw a couple of field mice scurrying in my backyard, I said, it's time, we're going to have to bring another cat in, because Butterball was the consummate mouser.
Oh, it's really great to have a cat that really helps out around the house too.
She was very industrious.
But I think you're asking a good question, though, in terms of, what is an appropriate, if after you go through the grieving process of losing your pet, one of the most natural questions that come up is, should we get another pet? And going through that process of figuring that out is really important. So I don't think people should rush into that. I think that they should really give some real thought to that. And I think it depends. Like, I'll come from my perspective a little bit with children and families. Sometimes when you replace a pet really quickly, the children can be confused by that because they think that you're trying to, not remember or be loyal to the pet that they had, and that kind of can be confusing to them. So,
And that's an emotion that I have been faced with in the last few days too.
So, and I think we're really working through some of that by talking about it and so on. Sometimes people harbor, one of the secrets about grieving is sometimes people harbor this feeling that if I give up my grief, I'm just being disloyal to my pet. And so they don't get over the grieving process because they don't ever want to give up their grief because they feel it's a problem, and that creates a complex type of grieving process. So really being able to acknowledge that and give voice to that and be able to talk about that and really helps you to open up for the right time to be able to consider whether you're going to get another pet or not, So
Talk about these dogs.
well, these are two of my dachshunds here. Bridget is in my book as the character. She is kind of the dog who does most of the teaching, and I set her up as the character who does most of the teaching. She's the calm one. She's the one who has got all the wisdom.
I don't know if you realize this, but I really love dachshunds.
I think that's
fun.
awesome. I think they're wonderful dogs, and of course we've had two of them, Bridget and Philip. And one was a long-haired dachshund, red and long hair, and the other one was two different colors, tan and black. And
A smooth?
yeah, smooth-coated one, and they were both minis.
Dapple. He was a dapple.
Yeah, he was a dapple. So
They are awesome dogs.
They are.
they're so loyal, and of course, Philip the dachshund always loved to watch football. So I mean, what could we do? He'd like to sit on the couch, and we'd have snacks, and we'd watch the Patriots, and so it was like a great combination. We were so attached to each other. So he's really missed when they both recently have passed away, and so that kind of got me to thinking that some of my family members have said, well, why don't you give voice to your thoughts by writing a story? And so really recently my most recent story has been about loss, and that's called irreplaceable loss, and so that's another feeling that's not addressed in this particular book. This one has feelings of
So there's a third book coming.
well, we'd like to see that happen in the near future. So but this one here, I think, is one that I really recommend. It was on the online book club. It's just done a review of the book, and they don't take the position that we have to write something that's nice for the author to hear. They're very critical, and they gave me 4 out of 4 stars on that book. And
That's a nice accomplishment.
and so they put it out online, and so anybody who wants to see that unbiased review of the book, and I'm very proud of it, that they take a look at the online book club, and at the end of July and beginning of August, you can see that review in there. So
What advice can you give to someone, to an adult whose child is experiencing the loss of a beloved pet?
well, I think that one of the things that we want to try to do with children is we really want to listen. And we really want to be able to answer questions appropriately. We don't want to give them more information that they need, but we don't want to underscore the information that they need to feel comfortable and understand what's just happened. And so listening to them helps us take the lead as adults and caregivers and parents to kind of help them understand questions that they have at their own particular level. And so I think that listening is really is key. Then I think also, the question, when you listen to children, some of the questions that they have is, some of the younger ones, is they get confused. Like if you're talking about burying a pet, or, I've had this question asked to me before, like how do I explain that to my child? Because I tell them that we've buried him in the ground, and then he's also gone to heaven. And but the child is like, well, we want to dig him up because he's down there, I'm lonely. And he doesn't really understand, like, that the difference between that part of us, the spiritual part of us that kind of gets released at death, and the physical part of us that gets buried, and we pay respect for it by putting it in the ground, or we do some kind of cremation. So I like to tell parents to think of it this way. If you sat down with a child and had a candy bar, and you opened it up, and you took out the candy bar and you put the wrapper down, and the wrapper would be like burying the body, and the candy bar would be going up to heaven or being with God, and it would be in his hands at that point. And so they could see concretely the difference between where the body is and where the spirit of the animal's gone to God or been released into the universe. And that really has helped a lot of parents concretely be able to explain the process to them. So I think cremation is a little bit harder and a little bit more tricky. So, but I think that as children get older, they're going to ask some of those questions. And I think if parents, one of the keys, if parents are calm and parents talk about it in an even-keeled voice, children can usually stay calm. If parents are not, if they're getting upset or they're really having a lot of times, they're really overwhelmed with feelings at that moment, not a good time to talk to the child about it, because the child will, there's a contagion that takes place. They get upset, so the child gets upset.
There's a negative association there.
Absolutely. So I think that one of the keys that you mentioned, like what should parents do? They should stay calm. They should be able to listen. They should be able to answer questions at an appropriate level. And that's really kind of some of the big takeaways I found from talking to parents about how they might be able to handle situations a little differently, So,
Are there are there groups for children? Pet loss.
I did some
Groups.
research. I did some research on that recently,
Yeah.
and there is a website by Colleen Ellis, and she has a blog, and she has lots of people who write in and talk about their pets, and she also gives advice about pets, where parents could go and ask questions, or children can go and ask questions, and she gives lots of useful information about pets. So I found that one to be a really helpful website. So I would recommend that one. Out of all the ones that I've seen, I thought that was the clearest and the best one and the most parent-focused one.
And Jim's story about grieving is on that blog too.
So I had written up a story about irreplaceable loss, which is about the loss of my dachshunds, and I informed the story. The story is of course fiction, but I wrote it informed with my own experience. And so when I was done, I had said, well, I'd like to get this information out to people, and so I had sent it to Colleen Ellis, and she read it. She thought it was wonderful, so she said, let me put it on the website. So if anybody goes to Colleen Ellis's blog this month, they can see a story called Irreplaceable Loss by Jim Vought, and I think it's very helpful because the story is when we teach children, children learn by stories. So I wrote a story that parents could actually read and do a teaching with their child. It could be a learning moment. And I put questions in there that would help direct them to know what questions to ask. And the story tells how one person has dealt with it, and it can open up a family discussion about that. And that's a way of putting language with it and helping parents to help their children process their own grief around it.
You said something that just resonated with me. It's important that families share together and get together with their children and speak openly. It's
Yes.
important.
I think so too. I think that the natural process of grieving, there are some coping, just the process of being able to get together as a group, being able to say goodbye as a group, being able to, if it's burial or how you're going to handle that as a group. Maybe some people will say prayers, but that's a way of structuring the grieving process, and it creates a tremendous structure for children and for adults to be able to give voice to their thoughts in a very culturally sensitive way. Helps them to follow their own family and cultural traditions in terms of how they would like to say goodbye, and very, very helpful.
Please talk about your other book.
So the other book is the first book that I wrote. It's Puppy Tales, not Puppy Tales 1, because there was no Puppy Tales at that time, so it just was Puppy Tales. The other one is Puppy Tales 2. But this has a number of short stories, and when I first was writing, I said, well, let me write a different story about each of the dogs. So it's not as thematic as this one. This one is all about emotions. But this one is about stories about, one is about friendship, and in one of the stories, one of the characters is empathetic, and he's teaching the other one how to be compassionate by helping the other dog who got into trouble by sticking his head in a fence hole, how to go get help and to be compassionate, and teaching children how they would provide compassion to others who are in trouble, and treat others like they would like to be treated. And some of them are about feeling upset and using some calming techniques. And so they're different stories, but they're not as thematic. They're all related in the sense that they're all about one of our dogs. But so I thought it was a wonderful read for children, and I would recommend that one too.
And each story discusses coping skills, so it gives the children the ability to identify the emotion and then use a coping skill to address it.
And that is also very important.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Now, we know you love Australian Shepherds.
Yes, I do.
But Jim, what's your favorite breed? You talk about Dachshunds.
Well, when you have multiple dogs, you can't play favorites. But I have a soft spot for those Dachshunds. I love those little kind of hound dogs.
Have you ever had a wire Dachshund?
No. I've heard that they have slightly different temperaments, though.
They are, from my work as in judging and everything. I have never. I judged a Dachshund specialty match, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and I guess I earned a good entry, but and I ended up giving best in match to a wire that I wanted to have put in my car and bring her home.
That's funny.
Because she was absolutely phenomenal. But I love the three varieties. I think each Dachshund variety has something to offer. Mm-hmm. And I agree. And having limited judging, the wires have a little more terrier spunk in them.
That's what I heard. They're a little bit more.
They're very feisty.
Yeah. So one thing I have to say, that the long-haired Dachshund was a little bit milder and calmer, and the short hair had a little bit of an edge on him. He liked to be the boss, but and then I don't know how the wire hair was, but I have heard they are a little bit more feisty. So I've heard that there's slightly different temperaments among the three different kinds of Dachshunds that you can get. I don't know if that's characteristic of all of them, but our Dachshunds, that's how it kind of looked,
He was also the boss of the Aussies.
Yeah, he was the boss.
Even though He was a lot smaller than
He was
they
this big, and he was the boss of this guy
And
down
these
there.
were minis.
Yes,
Yeah.
they got big personalities.
Excellent. So where your book is available at Amazon.
Correct. Under Jim Vought, and you'd go to Amazon, and then you'd put in Puppy Tales 2, and then it'll come up. You'll see 2 books, and the second one is on emotions. I think for teachers in school, or for teachers, grandparents, or parents wanting to teach their children about emotions, that's really a very good explanation at an elementary school level for children.
Especially at this time when, the schools are reopening and children might be feeling stressed by that. It provides
There's so much chaos going on.
it provides relaxation exercises that they can do.
I think kids need a book like this, especially at this time, because a lot of kids are very confused.
Yeah.
They don't which direction they're going in.
Right. And I think that's really getting those skills in place. So some people don't realize that if you put a child in a situation that's stressful, that sometimes can be the most difficult time to teach the coping skill. If you teach it before they're in the stress, then you can help them, coach them to use it to manage that problem once they get in it. So I recommend that parents, knowing that we're in in unsettling times, to really give some thought to teaching those coping skills, even if they don't think they need them at the moment, because when the time arises, then you could you can kind of remind them of that and coach them through how to handle situations a little differently. It makes more sense to them.
So this is a book for all families.
I would say so, and I love the pictures in this one. The pictures of this one was done by Regina Geffer, and I had worked with her closely to see if I could get human emotions on the faces of the dogs. And so all the dog pictures in there, if we're talking about fear, the facial expression does look like fear, and
It's beautifully illustrated.
Yeah, I've been able to try this with 5 and 4-year-olds, just looking at the pictures, and I'd give them a neutral picture, and I'd give them one of sadness or happiness, and I'd ask them point to the picture of happy. And I was surprised, really, that children of 5 years old could take those pictures and really identify the emotions, these outward signs of what people are feeling internally, which is really important for them to have empathy with others, because they understand then how others are feeling. They can put themselves in their position. So she did a wonderful picture. Just the pictures alone are very teaching.
And they're very colorful too. And
Yeah.
they're beautiful.
So,
They're
yeah.
fun stories.
Yeah, there's a lot of jokes in them, dad jokes, and can't help but give a couple of those every now and then. And some entertaining stories that take place at the same time. So it's fun. So it makes learning is fun with reading the stories to the kids.
Do you have a favorite breed?
Well, I'd have to say dachshunds are pretty much up there on my list. I've had so many dogs, and I love them all, and they're all great. But I think that dachshund got, he's so much
Top
attachment.
billing.
He got so much attachment because he's so small. We used to kind of pick him up and carry him in and out, and all that contact, all that holding of him, all of that togetherness really made me attach in a way that was somewhat different than some of the big dogs. I loved all my big dogs too, and they sometimes like.
Have you had any big dogs?
Well, we have the Australian Shepherd.
Yes.
I had a collie as a kid, and we had a golden, and those are and we also had a Labrador that was brown, Kelsey the Labrador. So we've had some big ones, and I've all loved them too. They all are unique in terms of the features that they have, and some of the.
Have you ever
skills.
had a cat?
When I was growing up, we had 4 cats, so I used to have cats. But I didn't know with our dogs how well they would get along. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the cats and the dogs get a bad billing sometimes? Getting them together? How would Butterball have been?
Butterball, I shouldn't speak ill of the deceased, but Butterball did not like anyone rather, than herself. She liked my brother and I. Butterball did not like other animals. And Butterball especially did not like other cats. But when we had Kerry Blues, and I had Kerry Blues for many, many years, we always had cats because my mother always wanted to keep a cat in the house to let it go outside because they were expert mousers. They were expert mousers. And we live in a field, and they were always coming into the house or into the, into the barn area and stuff. So we said, no, we need a cat. But
How long did you have Butterball for?
we had Butterball, but we had Butterball. We acquired Butterball when she was about 5 years old, and she lived to 14. So we had a good run with her, and of course she's terribly missed. But someone spoke to me yesterday, and they said to me, "Have you ever thought of getting a Sealy Ham Terrier?" Because that was a breed that I wanted. Many before we even got a Kerry Blue, I went searching for a Sealy, and or a Dandy Dinmont, and I couldn't find them at the time. And so we got a Kerry Blue, and we showed for many years, and we exhibited, and I was very active in dog circles and stuff, and that was major part of our lives. But I was thinking last night, should I get a Sealy? And I said, you're going to be 65 next week, and you've had a stroke, and you got to slow down a bit. And a Sealy requires and people don't even know what they are. Sealy Ham Terriers are way down on the totem pole, and they are not very popular in this country anymore. And people have said, I said, I can't put up with all that grooming. And they're very expensive as well. So we are going to segue away, and we're going to return. This is the second part of our show. We are going to have Jo-Ellen is going to come to the front seat, and she's going to talk about Casey and the
Price. Oh, my other Australian Shepherd is Price.
And Price. And we're going to talk about Australian Shepherds.
Sounds good.
So thank you very much. And we hope, Jim, this was great.
Thank you for having us on there.
And so much information. Thank you very much.